What is going on, everyone? Eric Rosen here, astrologer extraordinaire, shamanic practitioner, breathwork master, Reiki energy guy. I saw this really cool thing the other day where someone said something about like not fitting your majestic essence or something to that effect into a 3D box, and that really resonated. So, some of these titles and that, we are the identity of the authenticity of how we present ourselves. Our vibe speaks for us, and we can throw around these terms of the English language, but we got to go above that. It's Uranus and Gemini. So just a reminder out there to people that this is we're stepping into no mask zone, and we've been there for a while. It's just the territory for people hiding their true colors is evaporating, and so for some reason that channel wanted to come through. But alas, what this video is about, this is, I guess you could call it episode 3 of my prophecy work, my Akashic records channeling, whatever wants to come through in terms of source, spirit, higher dimensional energies, the Arcturians, the Galactic Council, whatever higher divine energies that are there to guide us, especially building up to 2027 and beyond. This is about kind of paying it forward in the way that we're showing up. So, the Akashic records part is like just kind of reading the tea leaves, the timelines that we're on, the things that we can do. And the prophecy work is more predictive work. I'm going to see if I can pull more prophecy work today and see if that wants to come through. For those of you that haven't seen the prior episodes, feel free to check those out. The first one was on Mr. Charles Kirk, and then the second one was more about preparing for 2027 as a human race. The first time I ever did prophecy work was like 2019, 2020. Had this channel come through that there was going to be a fertility crisis by the year 2050. Hopefully we can avoid that. But it does align with the whole Pluto and Aquarius aspect of things that no one talks about because everyone thinks it's all about tech and community and innovation, but Pluto's also the Grim Reaper and Aquarius is people. So, it's world population stuff. It's death and rebirth around that too. So, but, of course, after I did that prophecy work, that's when we started seeing the reports, the fertility rates dropping, especially after the, jab in 2021. So let's see what wants to come through. Actually going to clear my field. A little selenite action. I really want to say on a human level, I'm really putting myself out there doing this stuff. I've been doing this work since 2018, and maybe I take it for granted, the work that I do, and it's just like a normal thing, but the boldness of even speaking into these spaces, and I know there's a lot of other amazing spiritual beings out there that are doing this work too, and shout out to them. But I think what we're going to see when Uranus retrogrades back into Taurus next month and makes a great sextile to that Neptune-Saturn retrograde in Pisces is that we need the consistency of the channel. We need the channelers to come forward. We need the spiritual beings to come forward and really taking full ownership and consistency of their gifts, their abilities, especially spiritually, intuitively. And it's an everyday job. So if anyone is feeling that, calling, but, it's like this new moon in Libra, it's like searching for peace. It's like, gotta still get up off the couch, and put the message out there. And so that's part of why I'm doing this recording right now, is because, doing this work every day. So let's see what's going to come up here. And call forth my guides, Maximus Valencia, the Arcturians, Divine Council of Light, Galactic Council. This is big. There's so much going on with, as I'm recording this is just a couple of days after the No Kings protest and the Trump AI video and that. So might have to clear some weeds around the whole Trump aspect of things. I think there's a burning question everyone wants to know. Is Donald Trump good? Is he evil? And that seems to be the split that takes away people's creative focus. Well, let's see what we got. We see this particular channel is around the medical industry. As the South Node moves through Virgo, there's much karmic action around health, structures around health, routines around health. The thing that's happening in the background currently with much of the media portrayals of the usual, what to have people focus on, some bad, some good things, some things that are inspiring, things that could be potentially used for good, such as AI. But the things going on in the background, the things that are going on in the underground chamber, so to speak, is around the prevention of the collapse of the Western medicine healthcare model. There is a lot of things going on, deep hidden secrets. We're talking encrypted codes, encrypted emails around hospital administrations connected to some really dark forces that are trying really hard to hang on. To basically keeping humanity chasing its tail when it comes to evolution. That health symptoms are a predicate of disease in the being. It's a lack of fully allowing the mind to transcend the illusions of glass ceilings, tuning into higher frequencies and higher dimensions, energies that can be channeled by any human being at any moment in prayer, to pray for the collective, to practice forgiveness for whether it is Trump or it is politicians, or especially the negative forces. What's actually being asked of the superhuman capacity of humans to use prayer right now is to not just pray and send light to the light warriors, to those that are already practicing positivity, moving towards a good space, but to actually give an opportunity to those that are most hated and most despised for an opportunity for ascension. We see that this is the superpower of the everyday human and the collective, as these dark forces try to manipulate and come up with very radical plans for people's health to keep them sick and confused. That by sending this prayer and sending this energy, this is an opportunity to actually ensure that those plans never come to fruition, while these plans will ultimately not come to fruition to accept any significant part of humanity. There can be collateral damage of those that are, you could say, hardwired into the matrix, that will fall for the next offering of a health solution that is not a health solution, that is just the next experiment. While many of these experiments, the results would be negligible, as the power of the human mind and consciousness is more potent than these dark forces that are waning, it does serve as a distraction from the true creative ability of humans to dream, to come together in community. We see that at this time, humanity needs its community, it needs its relationships, that there's no one person that can be Einstein or be Nikola Tesla or Thomas Jefferson, a solo pioneer. This is a time where synergy needs to be created, where trust issues have to be transcended, where the limitations of borders and boundaries around belief systems and philosophical differences even in religion and politics. For those that insist on hate and violence, even through the word of mouth, of attacking others, there's a divine reassignment happening for these beings. There's a sort of spiritual timeout. These beings will start to experience delays in their reality in terms of divine compensation, as these structures in the collective are splitting. Spirit is wanting to show people the concept of mana, which is the source nourishment energy of what is needed, especially even desired by the soul for true ascension and empowerment, is radically available simply by being connecting to the earth codes, especially in spiritual community, things like meditations, drum circles, perhaps even sound baths, depending on the authenticity of the sound practitioner. What this is all ultimately leading towards is a collapse of society as we know it, but it is a rebirth. It's a rebirth in the crystalline bone structure of humanity. Much of the vaccines that have been ramped up in the past few decades have secretly, by design, been to sort of erode the bone density on a DNA cellular level to keep people locked into actually more primitive patterns of operation, only seeking things like basics like food and rest. And in the confusion in between seeking some of these basics, in the fatigue that's been created, the cloud of judgment of humanity because of the complex combination of poor food quality, which is starting to shift in demand, but also environmental factors, but especially focused on the decades of imposed vaccines on children, and even the pharmaceuticals, especially pushed on adults for their ailments. This has been designed to keep humanity from fully realizing its true potential, which in the cellular DNA activation that is coming, that's influenced by 3i Atlas for a sort of cosmic reset, as well as the divine timing specifically this year of the winter solstice and the months that follow with the astrology. It's all designed to open humanity's hearts collectively. It's worth noting that nothing is happening by accident. Be rest assured there are cosmic forces that are protecting humanity's ascension. Free will does have to be honored for those that choose death, decay, war, conflict. We see that this is going to be a highly emotional, volatile time for people these next few years, as even as those that are choosing to ascend and choosing the light will still be experiencing some ripple effects from those in turmoil emotionally, especially waves. First wave is political turmoil, second wave is health, followed by religion, each with a little bit less of a dramatic effect on these tiers. But think of those that are choosing to ascend in their light and their vibration, not to become hermit-like or want to isolate, but to think of this as being on a pond on water. And those that are rocking their own boat produce ripple effects in the pond and can disturb the egoic desire for peace, of pure tranquility in their emotional field, as it pertains to this metaphor of their own boat gently being rocked by the ripple effects of the emotions of others. One way that this can actually be avoided, this brings up the concept of a good offense, particularly from the divine, working with spirit guides, angels, using the law of attraction to find community, where individuals that are seeking peace on their own boat to not feel the energy of others are not isolated in their boat alone, but rather on the land, grounded, connected to Mother Nature. This brings up the concept of grieving in community, grieving for what has been done towards particularly Mother Earth, the divine feminine. There is a big reckoning coming in humanity's hearts in terms of, we could use the word patriarchal, for what has been done towards the desecration of the feminine, and this very much does include women by gender, but also the divine feminine essence, that what has been being witnessed in large part with things such as protesting, the No Kings movement, shouting at politics, has in large part been a cry for more empathy and compassion. However, much of these beings have mentalized their emotions instead of feeling them because they're afraid of them. So this is the time for the healers, the facilitators, to teach people, to show people how to feel. Not by trying to wake them up. Not everyone is ready for this. Some of them have to wait until all of their privileges as a free being to reach their edge before they're ready. We see that what's most important at this time is that adults have acknowledged the level of healing that they're at, to look in the mirror and to acknowledge what they have not acknowledged in their emotional body. In doing so, they become an authentic role model of emotional intelligence, a sophisticated level of emotional intelligence that can be likened to the mental intellect of those such as Einstein and Tesla, although they had a great deal of emotional intelligence that's not written about. This has the most profound butterfly effect into the ancestral family tree around children that exist currently, especially under the age of 32, but also any children that will be born into the family over the next few years. Oftentimes, what is very triggering around children for humans on Earth is a reflection of the torture of their own inner child, and this is where the greatest amount of healing is needed, especially as it pertains to the mother and father during this next 2 to 3 day period, starting with the new moon in Libra. This is also the same avenue of a deep cleansing of any of the vaccines that were given in childhood, as this work is mind, body, emotion, spiritual, and so it does pertain directly to the biology. What actually holds in place the negative impacts of the biological implications karmically of things like vaccines and other pharmaceutical, medical things that have been limiting, it's actually a fixed mindset, a fixed mental philosophy on how the earth and reality works. That by design, these dark forces understood that it was really about preventing evolution. So by transcending the mind and the ego in things like deep meditation, plant medicine ceremonies, going on walks in nature, dancing, being in positive, high vibrational community that is devoted to Christ consciousness, to humanity's evolution, to unconditional love, but also acknowledging the shadow and the darkness that exist, of any hypocrisies that exist, as this often does show up in spiritual community with leaders. They feel that they have to be at a certain point to lead, which is complete nonsense. Leadership is in the aspect of owning both the light and the shadow of the evolutions, to not promote a sense of piety, but also grandiosity. Guruship, the concept that one has reached a certain level of ascension or vibration and therefore can no longer come down. This actually creates unrelatability. And while it's important for spiritual beings to insist that they don't lower their frequency for others, it's not creating a grandiose self-concept that becomes isolating in the mind, body, spirit, that they are somehow above others. Even this becomes a fixed mental philosophy and mindset and must be transcended. We see that what is being asked of the highest, you could say ranking spiritual beings, but this is in terms of consistency, action, devotion to the light, not by merit or award or recognition in this reality. They are being asked to clear and cleanse the ancestral pathways, to focus on this sort of home front as they reach the high level of their spiritual healing. This is sort of doing a very high level aspect of divine volunteer work to clear the disease and health energies, including the vaccines, but even fixed mental philosophies that have held in place health issues, closed systematic thinking in the family tree, in the ancestral lineage. By doing this, if there was even just one family member in every family tree that would do this, humanity could reach a peak evolution by the year 2030. And while this is a very improbable timeline, as the saying goes, shoot for the stars and the moon, we see it's very important to note at this time that the spiritual beings that feel this deep calling and understand the shift that's coming accept the reality that there is still a time period left before 2027 before there's a great shift, and that as things are in the fourth turning, and that there is what's often referred to as a crisis, but is more so similar to the spiritual awakening of humanity that's very uneasy, that can be described by the responses of being unplugged from the pod, from the Matrix, such as in the Matrix movies when people are unplugged. That as these things are happening, as these uncertainties ensue, it's okay to practice a deep sense of gratitude for what the physical reality is yielding. So this does include money, job situations, putting food on the table, having shelter. It's important for beings to not become so pie in the sky thinking that they try to be Superman or Superwoman and transcend certain laws in this current reality, that much of the work is recognizing the boundless nature that we exist in, but also accepting the reality of the release of the limited structures that collectively were agreed upon, particularly in the 16th century by humanity during times of kings and queens and concealment of true spiritual nature, and basically the equivalent of true concealment, book burning of what it truly means to be a free, sovereign spiritual being, accessing higher limitless possibilities of humanity. This is the 6-month eclipse cycle to remind humanity to be patient, to be an unshaming witness of what others are going through, to practice a great deal of compassion and empathy, to role model that, to be that first self. We see there's a great unmasking that will be happening with religion, particularly the next few months' time period. However, there are many that feel so fatigued by the changes in this reality, they will have a difficulty assimilating and accepting this change. Many will leave the church that they're assigned to as their spiritual awakening, and this is celebrated by many high-level spiritual beings, as religion has been catapulting people into their own personal suffering, aka their own personal hell, ironically, as religion promises the opposite. Religion is the ultimate closed-loop thinking. It holds the codes in place of offering humanity salvation, of offering them nourishment, but keeps them locked in a cage where they cannot reach the sort of dangling carrots or even the keys to unlock their own jail cell. We see the key exists in the mind and the pineal gland. It's important for anyone that wishes to relieve any sort of fixed mindset, religious or otherwise, as a form of step one of shifting disease in the body. Grounding is, of course, very important for everyday regulation, but the challenge of detoxifying the pineal gland. Now, what may be challenging to hear is that this includes images, thoughts, telepathy, videos, they keep the pineal gland from being able to see beyond its own plight, to keep the spirit from seeing beyond its own shadow and karma. Humanity is going through a shadow ascension process, and while this is a more comfortable awakening, it's important for humans, especially those that subscribe to themselves as spiritual, not double down, triple down on the distorted version of their ego of being their own hero or heroine, as we are all working together towards an ascension process that's meant to be more communal. This does not mean self-deprecating one's frequency. It means humble embodiment of it. But it is through this humble embodiment of true spiritual aspect of being, it's worth looking into certain reflections, such as the monks that go to the monastery to meditate for hours, days long on the mountains, that it is worth taking these long detoxification periods away from technology to reset the mind. One way humans can know is if their integration and reintegration with technology, AI, images, computers is working well, is if there is a deeper sense of peace and not a loss of presence or consciousness in using these tools, that there is a sense of consciousness in the being, especially in the solar plexus and even lower heart chakra, that's maintained in using these. This is why nature and detoxifying the pineal gland will assist with these things. We see that it is essentially impossible to ask humans to completely disconnect from their cell phones, as these communication devices are needed for planning and creating community during this time. But we see that it's important to pay attention to the usage of the phone, how much the phone is used, preferably refraining for the next several weeks from scrolling on social media, as there will be many false flags, red herrings, things designed to trap people in a subconscious mindset that's more 16th century, more medieval, more the people versus those in power, fixed mental concepts of being oppressed. This is actually not true. Everyone has an opportunity to ascend during this time. It starts with a seed thought of inspiration and connecting to prayer and the divine. This is a responsibility for those, especially as parents and in leadership positions, to not accidentally default to being the tyrant that is allegedly warred against, it being a reflection on the unconscious level of an abuse of power from those projections onto government officials or pharmaceutical or even religion or a boss, even a neighbor, a landlord, a parent. But in doing these things, while this is a really complex system, and it's encouraged for anyone listening to this to review this, to take notes, to assimilate this into their own experience, but moreover, accepting the resonance of this transmission as a deprogramming to allow it into the being, to allow a shift to occur and breathing through it is a form of pineal gland detoxification. It's a form of opening the heart more, of relaxing more, of trusting more, that those that are choosing to be with the light are going to be okay. Even those that may not live a full lifespan over the next 20 years that have chosen the light, made a soul level agreement to transition to other faraway galaxies, to take the codes of what they've experienced in this free world reality, to assimilate it into a new, unknown and unprecedented experience in other incarnations. And this is one of the direct effects when those talk about how Earth is often observed by many celestial beings, both positive and negative, that this is where the action is at in terms of the universe, the galaxies that exist. A sort of mix of light and shadow reality TV show to many beings. That because of its importance, the decisions that humanity makes in their frequency, no matter how long they're in this reality, get to choose to take these frequencies all the way to the end of their days, and that there's a sort of soul karma of release that can happen for a greater freedom of choosing, whether it's a reincarnation on Earth to come back, or going into other realities. Final words. Detoxification of the pineal gland is a step towards health. In large part means refraining from images, videos that keep humanity in a sort of emotional drama loop. But moreover, it's also a celestial choice with the oversoul to just make a decision, and that can be made now, in the blink of an eye, in an instant, to detoxify the pineal gland. The ego may fight this. The eyes are the seat of the soul. And in shaky, unprecedented times and times of great change and transition, the fixed physical nature of things and even the fixed mindset as it views the fixed environment around it can be preferred to create a false sense of stability, to enforce the ego's safety, false sense of safety. It's worth noting that no one is truly safe in the sense of the way that they have made it out to be, whether it's through money, a relationship, a job, anything that's been relied upon for external means that produces a similar effect of resisting grieving and only going for safety, such as portrayed in the show Severance. That these things will reinforce a sort of delay in the ascension and understanding and divine transmissions and soul family contact, relationships, extraterrestrial contact. The mind needs its space to prepare for what it's been praying for. So grieving, feeling the emotions, spending time in nature, following certain protocols with technology. As mundane as this assignment may feel, and for some may feel like a suspension or an in-school suspension where privileges seem to be taken away, much of these privileges have been based upon the false entertainment industry that has been shoved in humanity's face for decades. And this does include movies, the rise of video, social media. There is an insidious nature to watching TikTok videos over and over again and Instagram reels. Even if it's positive and producing a source of inspiration from the outside, because this is not producing inspiration from within. This is why there is a depletion and hangover effect of the soul, because of the elation of when beings go to certain conferences such as Tony Robbins, Joe Dispenza, because they receive the inspiration from the outside, but they don't know how to integrate it into their day-to-day reality on the inside. It's worth noting that this is not about doing more, about overdoing things or more activities to overcompensate for achievement to make the soul feel better. This is actually preventing emotional currents from flowing that need to be felt from humanity's past, both recent and even going back to the 16th century, collectively, ancestrally, past lives, to grieve where humanity has injured itself, where it's used its free will and lack of compassion and empathy to war against the self and others, and the great atrocities that have been committed, that of course can be forgiven and are forgiven at the highest divine levels, as free will was awarded to humans on this planet during this time. Final remarks in terms of being well. If nothing else, for humanity to tune out of the political drama and the dramas that be and conflicts, as well, healing can occur and lessons can be felt through conflict, especially with others. Many are missing the mark of that self-reflection And there's also a great deal of guilt and shame and other thorns in the roads that have to be sorted through when conflict is chosen to learn a lesson. Conflict, fear, disconnection has been a teacher for millennia. What we are asking is that you become the teacher, that you choose. Would you like to choose compassion? Would you like to choose empathy? Would you like to embrace the sweetness of transformation, of ego shifts, even the ultimate one of the physical death that human beings incur as a way of release, of accepting the deepest fears, not to chase or hunt down these fears in the mind, but rather to breathe love and awareness and acceptance to them, especially through the belly and solar plexus. This is a return to source. This is a return to being, the higher self, the oversoul. Everything that is being searched for, sought for, to condense all this information that's been given today, or any information, especially that's being birthed from within, can all easily be assimilated by feeling rooted, safe, breathing into the solar plexus, relaxing, letting go of worry, accepting that much of the worry that is felt is not even akin to the vessel, but more so the mind connected to the collective unconscious that fears change, structures collapsing. When in doubt, self-love. Giving the self unconditional love for how the person chooses to experience this grand experiment on Earth. And a reminder that this is not the first time that humanity has went through this timeline of this ascension process. It's safe to act with confidence that you've been here before, as a part of you has. And that this keeps the vibration high, because there's no need for a false sense of connection to force empathy with others by having to take on their emotions as a way of social understanding that becomes isolating for the spirit to try to fit in. Acting confident, like one has been here before, is by being the emotionally intelligent role model that teaches and shows others that are ready for it, not forced upon them, how to feel their way through this ascension process. This is all in transmission. Anyhow, if you want to get your own personal Akashic Records reading, usually they're shorter, and I combine them in sessions with other stuff too. Like if someone wants to do breathwork or hypnosis or gene keys or a little bit of astrology, sessions can be combined too. I do this like 90-minute sessions for $250 where you can get a combo. So just putting that out there. Love and appreciate y'all. I'm gonna go ground and eat. Yeah, take care.